When the Japan sale hit the PS4, I got a request from one of my friends to buy and play Persona 5. He wasn't the only one who has requested that. I bought it thinking that I would probably enjoy it, but most certainly not to the extent that ended up occurring. I spent 2 weeks just playing Persona 5 without any other games in between. I was awfully addicted to it, and for good reason. It's a great game. However, let's actually get into the pros and cons of Persona 5. Persona 5 is a JRPG set in modern day Japan. You take on the role as a self-named character, codenamed Joker. After being falsely accused of a crime you haven't committed, you find yourself in a new city, new school, and a new life in general. Things start getting weird when a mobile phone app doesn't let itself be deleted off your phone and you end up dragged into a parallel world. The worlds are the hearts of the villains who are unjust and have to be changed for the sake of justice and survival. Persona 5 is a cross between a time management simulator and a turn-based RPG. On one hand, you have to manage your real life, go to school, pass exams, and hang out with friends. On the other hand, you have to stop the villains from achieving their goal before time runs out. I'll talk about real life first and then talk about the parallel world after. When in real life, you have a limited amount of time to spend per day. It's up to you to decide on how you wish to use it. Most of the time is spent building the so-called confidants with your allies. Allies being fellow students who also have been dragged into the parallel world, or people who have special deals with you, such as the weapon or medicine merchants. The confidants are ranked from 1 to 10 depending on your bond, which again depends on how much time you spend with them. Eventually you will hit a barrier which forces you to build your personal stats, such as knowledge or kindness for instance. You're stuck in the devil's cycle as you have to build up your personal stats while at the same time managing confidants. It's literally impossible to get all of the confidants to rank 10 during your first playthrough. The time management is fun if you're into this kind of thing. What I personally didn't like is the confidant system. It didn't matter how much I was interested in a person, I ended up treating them as a statistic, a means to an end. Once rank 10 is reached, hanging out with the confidant is a literal waste of time. I believe that this kind of thing shouldn't happen. I should be hanging out with people because I care about them, not because I think the passive they unlock will be useful for my next dungeon run. An additional problem with the confidant system is how disconnected the relationship building is to the actual character you're trying to build it with. Very often the dates would start off rather personal, talking about pasts, but eventually they would devolve as they become more about other people that meld with your private time. For instance, I really liked the clever girl Makoto. But during the dates, it was mostly not about her, but about another girl that goes together with her in class. It's just very disappointing to have your time wasted on irrelevant side characters like that. That's about all that's worth mentioning in the real world. You can buy medicine, weapons, hang out with friends, or improve personal stats. It's addicting and repetitive depending on your personal patience and ability to enjoy managing time. Eventually the game will hit you with a countdown timer leading to a bad end if you don't change the heart of the villain who is planning to ruin your life or the life of your friends in some way. That will be the part in which you jump into the parallel world and try to steal their hearts as it's described in game. The parallel worlds are dungeons filled with treasure chests and overworld enemies. You can choose to ambush them, which then forces a turn-based RPG fight. The turn-based fights are fairly JRPG standard, besides the one more mechanic which allows you to take an additional turn if you hit the enemy's weakness. Besides that, there's of course also the ability to use personas, which are the representation of the rebel spirit within the various different characters. The personas have different elemental, buff, debuff, and physical abilities that can help you discover enemy weaknesses or just straight up beat the enemy for you. In addition to having a persona, your character also has the ability to craft new ones in order to have a variety that allows you to cover all situations appropriately. It's a fun system that's sadly crippled by the mechanic of how you have to capture the enemies. After taking them down using their weaknesses, you earn their trust by answering their questions to their liking. The questions and answers aren't random, but they might as well be. They're complete gibberish, and so are the answers. It's all about learning the personalities of the monsters by heart and just answering based on that. a straight up awful system. I generally speaking enjoyed the rest of the combat besides having to find the enemy weaknesses. Unlike in games like Final Fantasy in which you can cast Libra to discover them instantly, in Persona 5 you just have to throw all the abilities you have at your disposal at the opponent until they might or might not react weak to it. Hitting the enemy's weakness is more often than not entirely luck based. In terms of story and character, Persona 5 is solid. Nothing brilliantly memorable or well written, but it'll keep you interested and craving for more. An interesting start, a bit of a slow middle, and a sudden but flashy end. If you have, however, played a lot of JRPGs like myself, then you will find a lot of cliches from that genre present here, especially towards the end. There is nothing wrong with that, but speaks to the rest I'm about to say for the characters. Your party members consist out of very likable but also very safe personalities, meaning that none of the characters really stood out to me in their uniqueness. Persona 5 also runs into literally the same issue as Ni no Kuni 2. There are too many main characters, meaning that once the arc for that specific character is done, they get thrown to the sidelines. Some minor speech bubbles here and there, but that's about all the relevancy they're going to receive. Generally the characters are good, but just not interesting to really make me appreciate Persona 5 for the cast specifically. Music and voice acting in-game is fairly well done, especially the music really stood out and actually made me look up some of the tunes on YouTube and download the official soundtrack. Do I recommend Persona 5? Yes, absolutely. It's an outstanding game for both beginners and more invested JRPG players. The bang for buck is amazing, as I managed to receive literally 100 hours of game time within a single playthrough. I would only not recommend this to people who find themselves having to complete all their games before moving on to the next one, but not having enough time to spare. The people who just generally speaking dislike JRPGs, or the ones who figured out from all this info that this isn't a game for them.